Oops. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Empowered Consent Conversations. I am Christina McCabe, and I am joined by my gorgeous guest speakers this week, Brion and Karen. Oh, gosh.
Craig.
Thank you. And Camilla Davis. Welcome, you all.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so happy you're here. I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves more in just a moment. But first, I am, like I said, Christina McCabe. I'm a relationship and sex coach. I focus with the Erotic Blueprints, consent, and speaking our authentic desires. It is my absolute joy to help couples and individuals clarify and express their wants and needs so they can experience deep intimacy and amazing sex life they desire. I am also absolutely passionate about empowered consent, and that's why we are here today. The purpose of these empowered consent conversations is to get you the tools to create empowered consent in all of your relationships throughout all areas of your life in a way that really gets you heard, understood, and deeply fulfilled. In these conversations, we are exploring consent with a focus on it being exciting, healing, inspiring, an avenue for deeper intimacy and connection. Yes, please. Each week, I am gathering experts in the fields of intimacy, sexuality, and consent to dive deeper into understanding how empowered consent practices can up-level all of your relationships. I'd like you, if you would, please to take a look at the description above, and you will find Camilla, Brion, and Karen, as well as my contact information and a YouTube link. If you're watching us on Facebook to watch past forum replays, go ahead and subscribe if you want to be notified when we go live next time. I also love for you to be involved here. We all do. So feel free to ask questions or make comments via the chat, or just let us know that you're here, and I will monitor them and get you heard if I am able. Be sure to stick around at the end. We do a resource roundtable where everyone here will let you know how you can work with them and what they have to offer. All right, I would love for you all to introduce yourselves if this feels good to you right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Camilla Davis. I am a sexual freedom and intimacy coach. I work with individuals and couples to help them uncover, rediscover, and to tap into their power so that they can have the best sex life of their lives. I am a certified erotic blueprint coach, as well as an authentic Tantra practitioner. I am a certified sexologist and a sex educator, as well as a certified bondage and Elysium practitioner, amongst a few other things. So I am happy to be here and happy to join in on this amazing conversation that we are about to have.
Wonderful. So happy to have you here, Camilla. Thank you for joining once again.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess I'm next. My name is Brion Craig, along with my beautiful wife, Karen Craig. We're currently in Atlanta, Georgia. I am also an authentic Tantra practitioner, but also a Tantra mastery instructor. We're certified metaphysicians, and we are, our passion is helping people to dissolve the blocks in their lives that's keeping them from their bliss. We're born as blissful beings to enjoy pleasure on a daily basis, not just when we get to the bedroom. So we love to help people to get to that place of bliss and pleasure in their lives, in every area of their lives. So that's a little about me.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And I'm the lovely Karen Craig. Thank you for that. The other half of Brion and Karen. I too am a certified authentic Tantra practitioner and coach and educator. I teach on the staff of the Institute of Authentic Tantra Education as a Tantra Mastery instructor, as well as a certification instructor. As Brion said, we're both metaphysicians and metaphysical ministers. So we kind of have a broad brush. The modality we teach in terms of Tantra is authentic Tantra, which is holistic, somatic healing modality. So that's really kind of the perspective that we come from is healing ourselves, you know, which, and I really refer to healing as really an excavation of who we truly are. So that's what we've been up to.
Gorgeous. I am so excited to get every one of your voices heard in this conversation. This is rich. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, those of you watching, if you've watched before or if you're new, one of the things that we always start with here is a definition of empowered consent. And I like each of my guests to define that for themselves. For while consent is defined and not open for interpretation, empowered consent, that empowerment aspect is open to some interpretation. That's personal. Your own empowerment is personal. What does that mean to you? So I always love to get our guests defining that for us as well. So on that note, what is empowered consent?
So from my perspective, when I actually see it written, what I'm feeling is power in me to give consent, to say yes, to say no. And in order to have that level of power, you have to be fully embodied, fully present, fully aware of what your needs are, what you're feeling, what you want, what you don't want. And that can become more complicated for people than they often think. You know, it's just like, okay, yes, I want this. No, I don't. But there's always something underneath that. You know, is that really an expression of your genuine desire, or is it an expression we talked a little bit about before the show started? You know, is it rooted in shame? Is it rooted in fear? Is it rooted in past trauma? So that's kind of my broad brush perspective on what it is.
Absolutely gorgeous.
And I guess I'll go next and piggyback off of that. And I believe empowered consent also is literally looking in the mirror and deciding what you're needing, wanting, and desiring, and what that consent actually means for you. So it's really important that consent, as you said, you know, that's kind of like consent is consent, but what's consent for someone else is not consent for you. And it may be, but for you is something that's completely just authentic for you, your life, and what you're wanting in that moment. So that's my definition of empowered consent.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And for me, yes, it's definitely about embodiment and embodying, owning the true essence of like who you are at all times. So knowing thyself, what you believe in, what you stand for, living and speaking from that knowing, from that place. And so that knowing for some people could be the God inside of you. For some, it could be your pussy power. It could be your intuition or your gut. You know, it can be the universe. It could be the ancestors. So whatever that is for you, just allowing us to consent from a place of power, like within yourself.
Fantastic. Yes. Yes. I think, you know, there's these common threads that run through everybody's definition of empowered consent that has joined these conversations in the past. And most of them are this deeper awareness, right? This embodiment, this ability to look beneath the surface and tap into your own deeper knowing of self, that looking in the mirror, right? Yeah, gorgeous stuff. I have added to empowered consent all of that ditto. For me, it's important as well to show up in my life for others to really be open to their voices when they're spoken to me in a way that creates a sense of safety for that. I think often I see some are willing to speak their voice, but not willing to emotionally regulate and not get their asks given and hear a no from another, or hear another person's authentic truth. So that co-communication feels important to me in some relationships, in some not, right? A no is a no, period. It's a full statement. But in other places, in my life in general, I like to walk through life making sure that I'm showing up for others to speak to me authentically as well. Yeah. And capacity. Are we at capacity to give our consent?
Mm-hmm.
That feels important to me. Sometimes I am exhausted. Sometimes I'm exhausted. Sometimes I'm triggered. Sometimes I've just had a hard day. What capacity am I in? Am I ill? Right? Have I had a couple cocktails? Am I all high on my sex hormones? Like, where am I? What is my capacity now? So an awareness of that feels important as well.
Yeah.
My influencers. Yeah. So then, what is Tantra?
You want to go first?
I guess you can go first because we all went first.
Oh, man.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
You know, our definition of Tantra is weaving light and sound with form, light and form with sound. And basically what that means is that we connect the outer world with our inner world.
Yeah.
A lot of times people hear Tantra and they think it's kind of like going out somewhere and, again, floating in the ethers and dealing just with sex. But it's literally connecting our outer and our inner world.
Mm.
And for us, when we meditate with our eyes open and a soft gaze to connect those two worlds, because our issues are in our tissues. So we like to make sure that when we're connecting with the power we have, it's actually healing our body. Because we can't heal our bodies out there in the universe, we heal our bodies right here. You know, we connected to everything. So that's what we do, we connect it. So that's what, I'm not sure what Tantra is, I'm sure it can piggyback a little bit.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so ditto. So what I would add to that, and I spoke a little bit about this when I first spoke, but we teach authentic Tantra, and so it's lineage based. And so what that looks like is it's a Tibetan lineage, and it's handed down from teacher to student. So that's in contrast to some of the newer forms of Tantra that, let's say, focus specifically on sex or exclusively on sex. So what we teach is really holistic. So it's really about healing the person. And then when you're healed, that extends out into your sexuality, your sexual experiences, how that's showing up for you. And it's somatic, so that we're talking about, just as Brion said and Camilla said as well, embodiment. So being fully in our own bodies. And when we've experienced trauma, which everybody has, we define trauma as any time our nervous systems are so overwhelmed that we're not able to process whatever happened. And so that could be, full on assault, someone jumping out in the bushes. It can also be other forms of, not so obvious forms of trauma. So it's also trauma informed. So we're also talking about regulating our nervous systems. So it's all of those things.
Wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate that awareness of trauma and being trauma informed. I think when we hear that word often, so many have this idea of it being that big event, right? But more often, the trauma we experience are those smaller events.
Absolutely.
We do have big events, plenty of people do, right? But we may have a lot more smaller ones that we're not paying attention to because we're so focused on the big ones. Wonderful. And Tantra as that healing modality of connecting in a deeper way.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And to add to what they've already said, when people hear Tantra, I'm hearing feedback.
Yeah. Can we turn the speaker down a little bit? Your volume.
Is that better?
Go ahead and talk. Let's hear you.
So when people think of Tantra, they automatically think of it's all about sex and it's have sex for hours and all of that, and that can be a byproduct of the practice. But like Karen said, it is a holistic practice which actually aligns our energy, our spiritual and our physical body. And so with this holistic modality, you know, it's a pathway, it's a spiritual pathway to enlightenment. You know, it's really medicine and freedom from suffering and ignorance. You know, it's designed to not only heal ourselves, but also to heal those that we come in contact with, especially our partners, because like we talked about before, our partners are mirrors to who we are. So it helps us to transform like our consciousness, you know, and just like clearly just opening ourselves up, opening and just expanding, you know, our consciousness. So like, I think of Tantra, it's not just about a sexual practice. There's so much more to that.
Yeah, I'm hearing from all of you that while Tantra is what our population generally attributes sexually, that it's a life practice. It's a bigger practice.
Absolutely.
And we've got a question actually from Joshua on YouTube says, I'm not really grasping what you're discussing though. My wife and I astrally or mentally engage while physically intimate. It's basically soul, spirit, sex while embraced. Is that what you're discussing or different? How would you answer that?
Who wants to grab that?
Go ahead.
As Camilla just said, it can be part of it. But again, Tantra is about the individual. If your Tantra doesn't start with you alone, with you and yourself, then it's really, I'm just going to say it, not Tantra. Tantra is about healing yourself. Dealing with we talked about those, you know, traumas, even the micro traumas, and to get yourself to a place that you're feeling whole, that you're feeling healed, on the way to healing, because a relationship really in and of itself doesn't exist. It's not a core being, it's nothing. What a relationship consists of is two individuals that decide to come together in agreement. So when these two individuals, if they're not healed and whole, when they come together, what are you going to have? Not a healed and whole relationship. Without these two people, relationship literally does not exist. So we have to focus on our individual selves.
Yes. So I think you're mentioning what it sounds like everyone here is saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what Joshua is saying, this intimate mental, spiritual connection with his wife when they are intimate is really that kind of spiritual higher connection with life and self first. And then, so what we picture Tantra, when we see these two people, we see the pictures of two people engaged in Tantra sexually, right? And there's all this energy just vibrating out from them and the connectedness of the two of them. We want that for us, with us and the world around us first. And then when we come together, what we create is like that higher note. When we have a group of singers come together and they sing notes beautifully and you create this higher note together, that's what you create when you have people in alignment with themselves first. Does that feel right?
I couldn't have put it better myself.
That's that sacred geometry, 1 + 1 = 3.
One
are whole.
Exactly.
Yes. Gorgeous.
Because people do think that when, you know, Tantra, that you have to be in partnership with someone.
Right.
And, you know, I always encourage when I hear people go, well, I'm single, I can't learn this. I'm like, that's the best time and opportunity. Like, that's the best gift to give to yourself, to do the work on yourself so that you can attract and bring in the relationships that you may want. But a lot of people, that's a myth, that in order for you to practice, you know, Tantra, that you have to be in relationship or in a couple, you know, with someone.
Great. And Joshua, quickly before we move on, Joshua, I just want to say thank you for asking. If we clarified, if we didn't, let us know. And I want to make sure that while Tantra, we could probably talk the whole hour and a half on just Tantra, right? So I want to make sure that we're bringing it back to consent and Tantra as well. But if you had something you wanted to add here, Karen, before we move forward with consent, I'd love to hear it.
I just wanted to piggyback on, what both Camilla and Brion were saying about individuals, because even when Brion and I teach, because when we teach couples, or when we teach together, typically it's a couples, and we'll teach together. We teach individuals typically alone. But when we're teaching couples, we always focus on them as individuals. Like we literally do individual intakes. We want to know kind of what is your background? What is your background? We teach the practices. We teach couples practices, but we also teach the practices to them as individuals with an expectation that they're practicing with themselves. And then also coming together with their partner. So that's really critical, that concept of it being about the individual.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And that's critical when it comes to consent as well, right? Because we're not giving consent as a partnership. We're giving individual consent. Even if you are in a partnership and you come to, say, an event together, you will have decided what each of your consent individually and as a couple is. Hopefully, that's something you've discussed, right? So then what do you want our viewers to know when it comes to creating empowered consent and Tantra?
I can go. Bringing those two together, which really is kind of something that it's already there together. It's just something we just need to kind of acknowledge, because if we're focusing on ourselves, we're asking ourselves, what are we wanting? What are we needing in this moment? And because Tantra starts with yourself, asking yourself those questions, we don't even usually do that. We just kind of just go with the flow and, but asking yourself those questions when it comes to Tantra, which ultimately Tantra is, as Camilla said, is a pathway to enlightenment. It's a spiritual practice. And of course, we want to have amazing sex with a partner, but empowered consent with Tantra is knowing that this practice that I'm doing, that even for myself, when we coach individuals and couples, we always create a safe space for them. And we let them know if anything feels uncomfortable for you, you have the absolute right to say no, because that consent with you. Don't let anyone take you out of your consent, even dealing with Tantra, because people will have the cloud of Tantra. And it's like, oh, it's Tantra so well. And it's really nothing but almost like maybe a glorified orgy or something. You know what I mean? But it's like, oh, Tantra, let's bring it back to yourself. What am I wanting? How does this feel for me? Even exploring Tantra. So that's kind of my view on that.
We use a pleasure scale. So one of the things we use is a pleasure scale as a tool. So sort of it can be a comfort scale, a pleasure scale. So 0 being like you're just numb, you feel nothing, and 10 like, oh my gosh, it doesn't get any better than this. And then
that's it.
And then asking yourself, where am I on my pleasure scale? Because what happens is people tend to check out. So when we talk about being fully present in your body, fully present to your own sensations, whatever they might be, a lot of times what we're kind of, our conditioning is, okay, well, this whatever this is going to be over in a minute, or they're like distracting themselves. Okay, I'm going to think about my taxes, what I'm going to cook for dinner, whatever that is. And then, when it feels good again, I'm going to come back to it. And so with the pleasure scale, what it does is it like really forces you to really be present to, how am I really feeling? Like, how is this feeling in my body? Because what feels good to me, in the first 60 seconds, 2 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I need something different. But like a lot of times you just will kind of stay in that space. And that's really what consent is. Consent is really about not just, okay, I say yes to the whole event, but like at every stage of the event, where am I? It's like, okay, I gave consent for, this, but it's like, this isn't feeling so good anymore. It's become irritating. So I'd like, to expand that or move to a different pressure or a different sensation. Like that's really what true consent is, as opposed to this notion you just say, yes. And then it's like this blanket yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Wrapping together again, that deeper awareness that Tantra is, and that empowered consent requires. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And not deferring necessarily to someone else. Basically, what they're saying is just not deferring. Is it loud again? I saw you move, Brian.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Not deferring to someone else, in regards to that consent. You hold the power within. So as Karen is talking about those different stages, and you're constantly checking in with yourself, and not this notion that because this person is a guru in Tantra per se, right, that I can they're just gonna, I'm just gonna just completely surrender to the whole experience, and I don't have to really check into myself or my body or my sensations or feelings of anything, and just allow them to do whatever they may want to do, right? And
Right.
so again, that is another reason why it gets like a bad name, because of that, the myth that there are others that actually know everything, right, and that we don't know it, and it goes back to us checking into ourselves, embodying that, what we're feeling, what the sensations we're having, where they're located in our body, just constantly checking in every stage of your experiences.
Absolutely.
So
Fantastic.
really giving away your power as opposed to being empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that that reference to the guru. I think that's so important. It's such a good point. And I think that I just want to say, okay, the glasses are coming down. Everyone out there, pay attention, because if it's a guru, if it's a teacher, if it's a workshop facilitator, if it's a doctor, if it's someone facilitating an online conversation, if somebody is in a position of power, that's when you really need to even further step up and step in.
Yes.
To pay attention to what your own body is wanting and what your own consent is, because now we have power dynamics. Yeah. And that's when we need to even more pay attention to our own selves.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And you teach people how to be their own guru, their own healers. That's what
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And even with your own partner, it's like sometimes that surprises, especially married couples, that idea that there's supposed to be consent, even in a long-term marriage, so it's like that's, we give away our power to our partners as well, instead of being fully present. And it's like, well, what am I feeling? What am I needing? What, do I need something different? Is it a yes for me today? Whatever it is, because I'm not going to be the same every single day. There's going to be something that I desire today that I didn't desire yesterday, or, that could show up in so many ways. So it's being present in your body, in your relationship, and in that moment, even with your partner.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Brian, did you have something?
Yes.
I thought I saw
to make sure that, not monopolizing the time, but yeah, and that is very important. I mean, there are times where, even I ask, are you ready to be entered? Like literally that consent, I think a lot of, for heterosexual couples, that it's something that's assumed. And I think it comes from that notion from religion that says your body is not your own. Your body belongs to your husband, and your body belongs to your wife. And it's like, again, your consent is completely stripped away. So it's almost like you have a slave. And I believe most, I would say, female partner in relationships probably feel more raped than anything else. They don't, because they really haven't consented, but they feel like, I have to do this. And that's what that is. It's literally like, I have to do this. And in a relationship, go ahead.
Yeah, once there's a sense of obligation unexpressed, and this is one of the reasons that I love us talking to each other, because while I'm definitely have had times in my life where I did participate in sexual acts that I really wasn't all in for, didn't really want. My partner was not forcing me, but I was not communicating.
Yeah.
And that creates really some interesting and hard energy there, because my partners in those situations would never have wanted that act with me if they had known I didn't want to be participating. Right. So they weren't really violating. Right. And yet in some ways I was violating me and them by not letting them know, because now I'm having them engage in something that they're not really in for, they wouldn't be in for if communication was on the table.
Yeah.
Right? So it's big.
Yeah.
Speaking our voices, everyone, it ripples out in many, many ways.
Yeah. That's that throat chakra, right? Like, so, you know, if we're not used to speaking up, asking for what we want, saying no, you know, honoring whatever it is that we're feeling, we're not going to do it in the bedroom.
Right.
You know, so, right. And so talk about like Tantra, again, it's not just about sex, but it does teach you about communication. It does teach you about, you know, consent and owning who you are and honoring yourself from like that place. And so I'm a firm believer that what you do outside the bedroom happens in the bedroom, right? So again, just if you're someone who is not comfortable with speaking up, maybe it's cultural, maybe it's just, you know, how you grew up and your, you know, religious conditioning or whatever, you know, that is a huge part of being able to embody, you know, the things that you really want, that power, that consent to be able to give that to anyone that you're engaging with.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing from all of you, that Tantra practices can really help us to learn, to connect to and express that part of ourselves. It feels important to also point out that there's a big cultural narrative around consent and asking for consent not being sexy, right? Brion, if you said ask before you enter, right? Before you actually enter your partner, a lot of the narrative is don't even ask me before you kiss me, right? That's not sexy, just do it. And so how do we take those narratives and how do we turn them and make them sexy?
I mean, I love what you said before, Christine, about, you know, like if your partner knew that that was really how you felt, they wouldn't have wanted to do that.
They wouldn't have wanted it.
Yeah. So, I mean, so your voice is, you know, your authentic voice is what makes it sexy. So it's really, I mean, some of it's a shift in, you know, our own cultural conditioning, like what is sexy? You know, is it that, you know, kind of somebody ravaging you or whatever, but you can even give consent for that.
Consensually, yum.
Exactly. I mean, you can say, this is what I would like for this to look like.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, so it doesn't have to be like we just have this notion in our heads that if we are even talking about anything of substance when you're sexually engaging, that somehow or another you're detracting from the experience. I mean, that's not true. It's like there's nothing sexier than being pleasured, you know, than being pleased. So I get to be pleased when I'm speaking my authenticity. It's like, yes, this is what I want, you know, this is what I need. And then he's responding. And then it keeps him present too. It keeps your partner present because they're not off in their heads. Is she liking this? Is she not liking this?
Right.
You know, what's my next move? And so
we're not creating stories then.
Exactly. So they can be fully present in their own bodies and in their own experience. And then that coming together is just combustion.
And it takes the pressure off
the
mood. Yeah, that's a 10. It takes the pressure
That's
off the mood because I don't have to guess, right?
Right.
I know what she's needing and wanting and asking. So what we do is when we teach couples is we teach them how to communicate outside of the bedroom first. So they learn the language, learn their please and thank you, learn to request what they're wanting, and learn how for the person to receive it. So when you're in the bedroom, it's not, you know, not awkward. It's not like, oh, it's literally it's a flow. And so, when you ask what you want, more of that, please. Could you, you know, I love when you go a little slower right there. So instead of saying, can you slow down? You know, oh my God. Oh my, exactly. Oh my God. Again, it's asking for what you're needing. And as long as you have this conversation before you get in the bedroom, don't just go in the bedroom and start communicating. They're like, what are you talking about? Say, well, you know, if you really want to know what really, really turns me on, I'm going to tell you. You don't have to.
Well, and get playful, right? Get
Get
playful,
playful with
get
it, right.
curious, explore different ways of telling each other and
Right.
hearing each other. You know, let no's become celebratory, create anticipation with those,
Yeah.
right? No, not right now, but maybe, right? Let's do some other stuff first, right? Or just no,
Right.
but playing with it, right?
Yes.
So that we can rewire, because
Yes.
we're wired neurology. Our neurology is wired then to find a lot of trauma response from
Absolutely.
speaking our voice sometimes, or from hearing no, or from hearing from someone that we're not doing things right.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'd
then we
rather
can
hear the moment than
rewire
hear
it.
afterward. You know, I'd rather hear the moment than have, you know, when you
The
did
Monday
that,
morning
that
quarterbacking,
sucked, you know?
but not in a good way.
Yeah. I want to hear Jordan's. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Camilla, do you have anything here? We're just flowing, so I want to make sure we open space.
You know, yeah, I think when it comes to like empowered consent, I think it's all about too, like really being seen, really being heard, and really being valued, right? And that's what true intimacy is really about. You know, you know, emotional intimacy and true intimacy can actually happen, you know, with that partner that you're with, when you're being heard, when you're being seen, when you're being valued. And so asking me what it is that I want, or me saying to you and feeling comfortable enough, you know, to be vulnerable and say, this is where I am at this moment, and knowing that there's not going to be any judgment, it's going to be received, it's going to be welcome, whatever state I'm in that moment. That shit is sexy.
Because it's safe. Like that's what safe is. Yeah, I love that.
Safety is sexy to me.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Wow, yummy, juicy, right? We're having fun. So then when it comes to assumed consent and this checking in, and I want to bring it back to Tantra, right? So in tantric experience, maybe workshops, or speak to it however it feels best to you, or with a lover, or maybe even with yourself. Starts here, right? How often do we need to check in? How often do we, once consent is given, have to start saying, okay, well, I don't want to keep assuming. So how often is that check-in necessary, do you believe?
I mean, I don't think there's a number, but I don't think it can really be too often. You know, it's really when you desire something different. You know, when you realize that you've become distracted, or you realize this isn't feeling so good anymore, you know, those are the times that you speak. You know, so we say that when you're on the receiving end of whatever the experience is, 70% of the responsibility is on you to express what you're experiencing.
Yes.
So I can't assume my partner is going to be able to read my mind. Right. I mean, it might be an unfair and unrealistic expectation. So and you only get that experience, and that's why we talk about doing the practices individually. If you're accustomed to even with yourself, like, okay, how does this really feel?
Yes.
What touch feels good for me? What speed feels good for me? Like all of those kinds of things, like I need to have experienced and explored myself, my energetically, physically, sexually, all of those ways, like all of that terrain to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah. And that's what we say, like Karen said, we practice outside of the bedroom as well, because and with yourself, because that perpetual scale, we want people to live in that 1 to 10 scale with life, not just sexually. If you're an experience, if you're even, let's say, having a conversation, even with a friend, and you realize this is not really, it's getting really hard, or you're agreed to something that's not a 10 for you. You know, everything doesn't have to be at a 10, but it should be pretty close to a 10. But if you find yourself 5, 4, 3, it's time to reevaluate what you're needing and wanting. And realize, if I can get this closer to a 10, and if you can't, how can I move this out of my life to bring something else in that's going to get me to a 10? Because there are no voids in the universe, right? So we need to continually check in, as Karen said, when you feel yourself checking out, when you feel yourself going numb, when you feel yourself, it's not pleasurable, it's painful, like, check in with yourself. And like, now, and it's, you know, as it becomes that muscle memory. It's just like, It comes to us subconscious.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it. Where am I in my 1 to 10? After a while, it's just, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, just it's very organic.
It's really organic.
Yeah. Gorgeous. Thank you. I want to say on the other side too, I do appreciate the 70%, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. And while we are not responsible for other people to tell us where they are, I do like to, like I said before, pay attention. So if I'm with someone, if I'm engaged with someone where consent is on the table and we've given consent, there's full consent here, whether it's sexual or not, but I'm starting to notice them checking out, or I'm noticing things that don't look like we're still in the same rhythm that we began in, without assuming and creating a story about what's happening with them, I'm going to want to ask, I think I'm noticing something. Do you want to tell me about that? Or this is what I think I see. Is that what's happening, or, right?
That's absolutely true. And that's what we do in Tantra. We tell them, like, if we're doing a practice and I find her zoning out, I'll ask her, where are you in your pleasure scale? So the same thing, just literally checking in.
Because that brings you back in. Because to answer the question, you have to, check in with yourself. Well, where am I?
Yeah, like you said, what's going on with you? Is there anything I can, that's great. So people will zone out and go somewhere because the receivers are typically used to kind of just being quiet and just receiving. So it's a reframing, like you said, of what we think of what consent looks like, and they may need help being brought back to the present, which is where our pleasure is, and everything we feel is right here in this moment. So.
And I just want to say, because I know that some people may hear that, and I don't want them to walk away with thinking like, okay, they're saying that we should be talking, during like this entire time, because I've had people that say to me like, you know what, like, he's always asking me, okay, how do you like that? What do you like? Is that okay? How do you, what's the, and there he's just constantly talking in the moment, right? And you're disrupting everything that I'm feeling. I'm in my, like, this pleasure, pleasure is zone or experience, right? And he's sitting there like, okay, what about this? How does this stroke look? All of that, and it's like, it just takes you out. It just like disrupts everything that's like going on. Right. So we're not saying don't talk, we're saying don't be cognizant of how you are asking and inquiring, from your partner, what may be going on with them. And yes, we're trained practitioners, so we're trained to look and observe and look at things. But for those that are not, it does take practice of you being a little bit more conscious of the person that you with, and looking at their eyes and see if they're, their eyes are rolling back. Does that mean that they're zoning out, or does something mean that it's hurting? And it's okay to just ask a question, because just because you hear someone moaning doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Right? So it's okay to just check in with them, but we don't want it to be something like you're constantly all the time, the entire
mechanical. Like,
but like when Camilla's saying that, like what I'm hearing is like somebody who's anxious. Like, so like there's an anxiety around it. Oh my gosh, am I doing this right? Like, how does this feel? As opposed to, it's like, I see your eyes are rolling back. How is this feeling for you? And so you're like there with their rhythm, and it's like, okay, this feels wonderful. More of this, please. So it's kind of that somebody coming from this sort of anxious perspective that's taking you out of that flow, because it's not flowing.
And if I trust her, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think all of that is yes and, right? Yes, and depending on your relationship, the length of time you've been together, is this new, or is this the first time you're experiencing something like this together? I mean, obviously, it seems to me, in the beginning, first experiences, we really are doing a lot more checking in, right? But as we build more capacity within our relationship, more trust in each other's voices, that my partner will tell me if it's not working for them, or they will tell me if they want me to switch. Then we don't necessarily always have to be asking after every touch, because we know, right? Or maybe we've talked about it ahead of time and we trust, like, you know what, I'm going to tell you. If I don't like that, I'll let you know and I'll try and we'll work out how that is. Or if I don't want to use my words, I'll make a signal or a sign for you that you're going to watch for, right? So the deeper our relationship, the longer period of time, I think we have more space within that. Yeah. What do you think?
It becomes like a dance, like when you're saying that, you know, like I'm picturing, you know, when you're dancing together and, you know, like there's like he'll put a slight, you know, like pressure on your back. And so that means make a full turn.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, okay, can you turn? You know, it's like you learn each other's language, you know, and you create your own as well. You know, it's like, this is what this means, you know, and so like, what you can do, for example, like to learn the other person's languages, because I can say, you know, can you slow down? Okay, what does that mean? You know, because what's slow to me might not be slow to him. That might be medium to him or whatever it is. And so it's like literally, it's like, you know, like showing him, okay, this is what slow feels like to me.
Yeah.
You know,
right?
Exactly. Right. You know, this is what, you know, a firm pressure feels like to me, you know, so then he's not interpreting, you know, I'm saying, you know, more pressure. And he's like, but what does that mean? You know, so that's what you're talking about. Like the longer you're together, you can actually create your own language, you know, and so that each person
inevitably do. Yeah,
exactly.
we inevitably do.
Yeah, because
Camilla, I think I saw you're trying to.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you know, you show up like with even if you've been with someone for a while, you know, you can show up to every experience as a new experience because there is something that you're going to most likely discover something new about yourself or like, you know, with your partner or whatever. But I do believe it, like what Karen is saying, like definitely like show them because the reality is your partners want to please you. And you want to please your partners, right? So why not set them up for success and do whatever you can really to show them, you know, and so that you're going to have, you know, an amazing experience because you've set them up for success.
Which means success for you.
Win-win.
And not just keep circling, right? Your turn on, your turn on, so your turn on, so they are, so we're all.
But what you mentioned, Christina, I was literally going to say with the trust, you know, if I trust that she's going to tell me, like if we have this agreement to say, you know, let me know 70% is on her, it won't, but Camilla's saying won't happen. Is this right? Is this okay? Because I'm trusting she's going to let me know, you know, that she wants something different. And because I know I do want to please her, as we said, we do want to please our partner. I'm not taking offense to it. It's like, oh, okay, well, what would you like? You know, this is what it feels like to me. And maybe while I'm pleasing her, she's showing me her speed, showing me her rhythm, you know? So it is a dance, as Karen says. And, you know, we're all kind of on the same page, but
No, and trust is sexy. Trust is so sexy. I mean, come on, right?
Yes.
So I'm curious when it comes to gatherings, workshops, where do you think in those kind of dynamics,
I was laughing at Camilla. I'm sorry.
Camilla's
what did you do, Camilla? I didn't even see it. I was looking up.
She's like, ready for your question. We know when you do workshops and events, you're like,
so this is fun for me. This one, I love this one because I'm going to tell you over the years, I have been to so many rainbow gatherings, dead shows, spiritual workshops, you know, events, yoga workshops, all of these things. And there can tend to be this like bubble of raw love and peace here. And most people don't want to rock that boat, even if it's not fucking feeling good. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, I haven't done a lot of Tantra workshops, so please tell me if I'm totally wrong, but I'm assuming that could come into play in Tantra workshops, gatherings as well, because it's a spiritual kind of a gathering, right? We're rising energy. How is that your experience? Do you see that there? And I'm not saying you all create that container, but do you see that there? And if so, how do people navigate their own personal consent within those kind of energies?
I'm going to answer that. I think it happens probably more than not in Tantra spaces. Because the focus is on, the sex. And like you said, we're floating. It's pleasure. It feels good. Just go with the flow. One thing, when we started doing retreats back in 2015, we've done retreats. We haven't done it in the last couple of years, obviously, but not obviously, but we have not. And one of the things that we've always done is we created a safe space for people that come.
Yeah.
And what that means is creating, again, talking about consent, and also creating agreements between our practitioners and the guests that there's no interaction there. Afterwards, you're going to do whatever, because what you talked about early on, the power dynamic.
You're right.
And so that helps to create a safe space for the guests to be able to come and just heal and just be able to just let go, because there's not many places you go to where you can just be, right? You can just receive and you feel safety. And that's one thing we don't want to ever do, is violate that safety that they're feeling and that trust they give us, violating that trust they give us, that we've created a safe space for them. So,
well, yeah, I mean, we don't want to re-traumatize people who more often than not have been traumatized.
Yeah, but it happens. Of course, we're in a space that we've heard stories. We hear this stuff. We know what's going on, and we see it, and we're just like, but our intention is to teach people.
Well, of course. Yeah. And I hear you saying that you're creating this container, and I'm wondering, within that container, what do you add to the container to create that safe space for people? And I think this is valuable for both people that lead workshops, right, or want to lead workshops, but it's also valuable for people that are in them to kind of get an idea of what should be here.
Yeah.
And if these things aren't present, do I need to get them added, or how can I do that? How can I still be in my own power within my consent in this space, right? So what is important to put in those containers, in those workshops?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I've been talking.
No, that's okay. No. But I mean, I was going to say, one of the things that he just said, which is, we have hard and fast rules. Like, if you're a healer, if you're a teacher, if you're a facilitator, there's no engaging. I mean, I don't care. There is no consent. In other words, it's no. If you want to be a part of this, then that by definition creates safety, because then that power dynamic that you talked about, the guru and the student, or whatever role they're in, that doesn't come into play. So that becomes really important when we've taught facilitators and teachers before, and one thing we say is do your own work. Because where a lot of that abuse comes in, and where that lack of safety is, because the practitioner hasn't done their own work. So they're seeking something from their students. They're seeking something from the attendees. And so that should never be the case, that your subconscious or conscious goal is to receive something, some form of emotional or sexual satisfaction from those who've come to you in a trusting place and from a trusting space.
Yeah, we need to be more of observers in those spaces. Yeah. And if not, have observers that are really kind of just checking in on people. If you see something, it's like, are you good? Are you, like, that's important, that they know that they're being looked after as well, because again, they are vulnerable. And when we say that they can interact, that we have our practitioners, they do professional services, that's one thing.
Well, right. Yes.
But even that, it's professional.
It's professional services. Yeah.
Yes.
And but it's
when we take away from the guru or the workshop facilitator and the participants, there also is a space between the participants for a certain level of awareness to come into play, right? I mean, when I lead workshops, especially around sexuality, I like to even just put it into the space. I even model sometimes with people saying no to each other. Would you like this? Say no, and then celebrating the no. I also put into the space, especially if it's more spiritually aligned or we're in one of those. I could teach sometimes at festivals that have a lot of yoga and spiritual enlightenment. And I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing.
Right. I got you. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Right. But you all know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I like to say things like, if you are not desiring to participate in any part of this workshop, you are not considered not spiritually enlightened enough. You are not considered that you're not diving fully into your vulnerable space with everyone. And exactly where you are and how you want to participate is celebrated here.
Yes.
Those kind of things.
And it goes back to again that empower consent to yourself. You know, so you again, even in a place like that, even more so in a space like that, like you have to be able to like know your yeses and your nos, because it you know, in the midst of all of this that's happening and the sensations and the energy that's moving and the beauty that's happening like in front of you, you know, if you're not really grounded in who you are, you can get swayed, you know, if there isn't a container that is set up, you know, properly, and there's not a safe container, you know. So everything that they're saying and everything that you're saying is correct, you know, but it also still comes back to like yourself as well. You know? Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah. I can see, I think we talked about trauma a little bit earlier, and trauma responses can just happen like that, right? We can go into a fight or a flight or a freeze or a fawning behavior without even the capacity to understand why that we just got triggered there. And so having those people like you two mentioned that are available to be watching and holding a safe space, especially if you have a larger venue or event, right? That feels really important as well, just to make sure that there's a eyes on, energy on what's happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, typically, I don't really enjoy our retreat. I enjoy them, but we don't. It's work, you know.
You're
I'm
not
like,
from your tantric experience.
yeah, exactly. And she's like, "Why don't you press?" I'm like, "I'm watching everyone.
Everyone, right?
Like, make sure
Your care
everything-
team, then you're
I'm
like
facilitator,
holding
you
space.
know, just like so.
Yeah.
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 I like to go to other retreats so we can kind of just relax.
Right? Yeah. What would you say to people that may want to attend a retreat, but know that they have a difficult time there, usually saying no or saying yes? Sometimes people want to say yes to things, but they're ashamed or shy or afraid. Or they want to say no to things, but again, they're ashamed or shy or afraid, whatever their story is around it. So what would you say to people around how they can create support within themselves or outside of themselves if they know that's a factor for them?
I think it starts with you keep saying that to yourself. Can you say, this doesn't feel good to me just being here? And so then it starts to translate into those spaces. And it is something that has to be, I won't say a skill set, but just
almost a muscle.
A muscle that has to be developed in life, or you're going to get fucked over in life. Like no matter what, you have to have those boundaries, those healthy boundaries that say, no, this doesn't feel good to me. And it's uncomfortable to say no. But when you say no to someone else, you're saying yes to yourself, you know? So you're saying yes to what you're desiring.
I had a student, one time when I was teaching around, this kind of thing, like owning her voice and being able to advocate for herself. And so where it started, it wasn't in those kinds of situations that you're describing, like, how does this look in a restaurant? So she said after we started working together, for the first time, she was able to tell the server, this soup isn't warm enough, or the bread is hard and stale, or, just whatever it is. I mean, in a nice way, but that this isn't the experience I came to. So like for her, it had to start there. Like it wasn't even realistic to try to start in a very charged experience like the one that you're describing. Like it had to start just in her regular everyday life.
Right.
Love, 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 love that. That's one of my favorite tools. Yeah. Start in safer spaces.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Start in places that feel like a little bit of an edge. So you're starting to build your resilience.
Right.
Right? Around being able to speak. A little bit of an edge, but don't start in the bigger spaces.
Right.
Right? And keep practicing. That's why it's a practice. Love that, Karen. Thank you. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Camilla?
Yeah, what can I add to that? I'm like, gosh.
That was it right there. Underline.
Yeah, it really is. It is, finding that sweet spot for yourself where you're comfortable, and then continuing to push yourself, past that comfort zone. I mean, I'm constantly pushing myself past my comfort zone. Being here today is pushing myself past my comfort zone. So, so as you develop that muscle, it continues to be something that becomes like second nature for you. So yeah, I agree. You may not jump out into a workshop or an event, because for whatever reason, you're not necessarily comfortable, and really understanding and dissecting why that is. Is it that you're not comfortable with the topic? Is it that you're not comfortable with maybe the people that are going to be there? Are you not comfortable with, maybe being away because you've never been away, for so many days or whatever it is. So what is all of that you're feeling that may be coming up, and kind of dissecting like all of that to see if we can get you to that next stage of maybe yes, maybe it'll be a yes, next week after I kind of like work through some of this other stuff. So just really like dissecting like all of whatever comes up, and whatever you feel, again, I keep going back to this, whatever you feel is okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like it's that awareness makes it ripe for growth. It makes it just so ripe to explore deeper and do all that yummy tantric self practice, right? To know yourself further.
Yeah.
I also really like to offer people, because I lead workshops, if I love people to reach out to me personally and let me know if they need support in a space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can email me, you can send me a message, or you can come up to me prior to the event and introduce yourself and let me know what your boundaries are there or what support you might need, so that I can either show up for you myself or have someone show up for you. Sometimes just saying what your boundaries are ahead of time can make you feel more solid moving into it, so that you can create them in those spaces as well.
Yeah.
That's great.
Love that.
How would you all react to someone reaching out to you? Would that feel comfortable as well? Would you like that?
Yeah, we'd love that. We actually asked them to do that, at any point, at any time, as you said, you feeling uncomfortable.
Okay.
And we like them to do it in that space, because we like to be able to address it. We've had to in the past. We've had to kind of mediate some misunderstandings, to put it like that. And I was grateful that they did, because at the end of the day, they're trusting us, right? They're trusting us with their lives, with their growth, with their healing. Always create that open door. I'll say over the policy, sounds so generic, but just a space where they can come and speak to us and be safe and know that we're going to take care of you. Like, I don't play, especially with the yon-yons at our retreat, because typically they're the ones that kind of, they're receptive ones. And so I make sure, like, are you good? Are you feeling safe?
Great.
And I just make sure of that. And even when we have retreats, and we do couples retreats, we also done retreats where there are people coming in from all over. And sometimes some of the men that want to come, or we're like, it's not a good fit for you, because they're wanting something. We know when people want something that's
right. Yeah, I always have a little questionnaire people have to fill out ahead of time too, generally, depending if I'm able to have one of those, so that we can kind of see. Even with coaching, a lot of coaches are going to ask you to fill out a questionnaire or do a little bit of an intake to make sure that we're a good fit.
That's it. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes
it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
of doing that is that beforehand is that you also get a sense of where somebody's triggers and trauma are. You know, if they've been the victim of some sexual assault or something, that gives you information around, you know, what might not be safe. And one of the things that I liked that you said was sometimes like the facilitators create this, you know, what we call this like love and light, you know, kind of environment, which is really sort of like gaslighting, you know, so people, especially where they've, you know, experienced some trauma, attachment trauma, boundary trauma, whatever kinds of trauma, and already like that, you know, we talk about fawn, like they want to fit in, they want to please, they want to, you know, and that can be a trauma response. So they don't want to, as you said, rock the boat, you know, and be the one to pierce the bubble, you know, and it's like, I mean, so as a facilitator, really letting people know, like, no, this isn't about us, you know, creating this, you know, experience where like you can't be yourself. You can't speak authentically.
I love that. And it feels important to me because, you know, we say, I said, and then you said, rock the boat, right? Or pop the bubble, whatever it is. But ultimately, why are we there? You know, humans, we want connection. We're here for connection. And we're not going to get the depth of connection and intimacy that we're desiring if we're not authentically ourselves in those spaces. That's where the big win is, right? And I have one of my questions. I always prepare questions because I love to think about this ahead of time. But one of them that I wanted to ask was, how does a no open doorways in Tantra? How does hearing no open those doorways? And I think it's in alignment with what we're saying here, that sometimes that no is just an expression of who you authentically are. So that opens a door. Does that sound right? What do you think?
I mean, like I've said before, like a no is a complete statement.
Yeah.
It's a complete statement. There's nothing that you have to give outside of that. And so in this, in Tantra, or like if you're talking about retreats and things like that, sometimes you may, and I've witnessed this myself, where someone will say no. And they're like, well, are you sure? Because, you know, I think that you would really enjoy this experience. And, you know, if you just try it, you know, then I'm telling you, because you're just going to have like this incredible, you know, and it's like, I said, no.
Were you at one of our retreats? Because literally that's like the same thing that happened. I want to say it was that there. Yeah. So
no,
that's common.
Yeah, but it's very common, you know, and so, and we're taught that, okay, when we say no, or we're not going to be able to do something, that we have to give an explanation. Like on our job, I'm not going to, you know, no, I'm not going to do that report. And it's like, well, why? Because you don't have to give an explanation. You know, no is a complete sentence, but we've been conditioned and trained that when we say no, that we have to give something even more, and that our no is not enough. You know, that, you know, when someone says no, that still may be a room, you know, for them to ask something else. And it's like, no, you know, that's a boundary for myself that I hold. And so when we're talking about in the spaces of Tantra, you know, again, no is a complete sentence. Complete statement.
That's powerful. So powerful.
Yeah. And that's not, I mean, like that's not taught in the culture at large. So the culture really is, you know, so for example, with men or lingam owners, the idea is, you know, like pursuit, you know, so that if they receive a no, then that's an invitation, you know, to push harder, or, you know, to kind of push up against that boundary. So it's not a complete sentence, you know, it's not, no, it's
I want to. Yeah, I'm so happy that you said that. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. I just got excited to say too that it's also the other responsibility, because not only are men taught that no is not a complete sentence, women are also taught to say no, even though there's still an open door, and to be convinced. We're taught to make them chase, you know, so that isn't working anywhere.
Yeah.
And the idea being, if a woman says yes too quickly, you know, then she's slut shamed, and, you know, all of those kinds of things. So it's like, say, and then that's where those mixed signals, you know, well, she said no, but but I think she really meant yes, or a woman saying no, but she really did mean, but keep trying, because
Right.
after the third try, then it'll be a yes.
And I think that awareness there is why no is a really good doorway. That's another way that no is a good doorway. It's a doorway to re-education.
Yes.
It's a doorway to healing. It's a doorway to modeling. It's a doorway to deeper trust. I'm gonna tell you, if I say no to someone and they honor it, what that does for me.
Right.
I mean, not only sometimes I still want some connection with someone I say no to. Often I do. It's a lot of close friends or people I say no to that I still want some connection with. Sometimes I don't want any connection with a person I've said no to, but still, if it's honored, inside me, something ignites, unites, heals. And if it's with someone I'm in relationship with and they honor it, it builds our relationship.
Yeah, and and that's so powerful. And we're in a place where we're changing the culture. We're helping to usher in this era of consent. Yes means yes, no means no, because as Karen talked about it, we all talked about it's that baby it's cold outside song scenario, right? It's like, she's like, I gotta go home, baby, it's cold outside,
I know.
It's that constant, like, pushing, like that hard to get. And I believe, as you said, the other side of that is having the one that's being pursued. I just want to always say the woman, because it could be a man as well, like that the no means no. And if it's a yes, say, well, I may be interested, but I'll let you know, So without saying, yes, I'm ready, I'll let you know, and it's like.
Which means it's a no for right now.
It's a no for right now, but I'll let you know. But it's still a no for right now. Still a no, right? But I'll let you know, and that doesn't mean, to be honest, it doesn't mean that you can continue asking me. If you keep asking me, it's not going to make me say yes any sooner. Thank you for reaching, for asking. I appreciate that. Thank you for your honesty, because men are shamed too, or the aggressors are shamed, because what they say is that they're thirsty now. That's the thing. Like, if he asks, more than once, oh, he's thirsty, or even one time. But even though, so it's like, just everybody's just so like just mixed up, like they're.
Yeah, and we're gendering a lot, so I just want to say too
I know,
that these go just for our viewers, really like to be gender celebratory and or neutral, but these kind of behaviors go everywhere. But you are speaking to really common narratives within male-female relationships. That's very true. And I want to say too, I believe that it goes the other way, that there's an expectation of men to always want to say yes.
Pass the collection plate.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I've talked to many men that were like, well, I was attracted, but it wasn't what I didn't really want to right then, or whatever.
Right.
They're saying yes because
this view that men are always ready.
Yes.
And that's what they're always desiring.
Yeah.
And the men aren't always ready. And that's not what they're always desiring.
Intimacy, connection,
peer pressure, that idea that if they didn't, go for it, if they didn't hit it, if they didn't get it, whatever, then they're shamed among other men, or boys in the locker room or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And again, just to bring it back, I'm sure these emotions and these expectations, these stories, these narratives run between both genders on both sides, so just want to be inclusive with that.
Yes.
We are getting close. I think we froze. Are they frozen for you too, Camilla, or is it just me? Oh, can I hear you too, Brion and Karen? Will you speak? Well, hopefully they'll join us back. I know how Wi-Fi can be a challenge. Y'all have seen me with my Wi-Fi connection stuff in the past, viewers. So I'm assuming they'll be back with us in a minute. I hope so. But Camilla, before we wrap this up, is there anything else that feels important for you to say about culture and hopefully they'll come back about culture and Tantra that we haven't covered here? Not culture and Tantra, empowered consent and Tantra. Yeah.
I would say that if it's something that you're curious about, explore it. You know, look into it, ask questions, read about it, reach out to people, you know, reach out to me, right? Because again, it has a negative connotation, especially when it comes to the Western culture, you know, and there's so much more to Tantra. And again, even incorporating consent in that, right? Like, so there's so much more to it than just what may be out there that's shown. So I would just definitely encourage anyone who's interested in knowing more to just start being, you know, just start exploring, you know, checking things out locally, reading, you know, whatever it is that you need to do just to kind of get an understanding, you know. And yes, we have been certified in authentic Tantra, you know, but I also have worked under other teachers as well too. There you go, other teachers. And so we have like Eastern techniques and Western techniques and somatic healing and all these other different, you know, parts that are combined with that. So I would just say, you know, just ask people just to if they're interested, just start exploring, just start asking questions, just start, you know, gathering information. Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome back, you two. I was hoping we would get you back.
I don't know how the internet just crapped out. I had to connect using my phone. I'm like, okay, internet just going out. So,
yeah, my viewers see me doing it all the time. I'm always trying to make sure I have good internet, but it's just it's a reality in my world.
Yeah.
So I was just asking Camilla, because we are about to wrap it up and go to the resource roundtable. I wanted to see if there's anything that you two feel like wasn't covered that you want to bring forward for our viewers, or anything that felt powerful you want to underline and reinforce before we finish today.
I mean, for me, it's just focusing on yourself, what you're needing, wanting, and desire in every area of your life, and what it'll do to spill over into the bedroom. Because really 90% of our life is living, right? Yeah. Living, walking, going to the park, going to work, whatever. That's 90%. And 10% is pretty much the sex part or the intimate part. But I mean, as far as physically, intimacy is all around us, you know. And
I was going to say,
we're intimate.
I'm not just leaving 10%. I'm sorry.
You said 90%. So,
no, we get you though. Thank you.
Yeah. So make your whole life orgasmic. Look to see what makes you feel orgasmic in everything you do. What is juicy for you? We're done, as our mentor, Davey Warren Erickson, teaches us, we're done fucking through life. You know what I mean? That's over. Those days are over. We're here to enjoy, to experience bliss and pleasure in every area of our lives. So that's what I share.
Yes.
Gorgeous. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, when we say bliss and pleasure, again, it's not just from the perspective, okay, so let's just, you know, paint our lives with these rosy glows so that we don't have to think about, you know, anything else. But it's really making like that really does help to balance our nervous systems. And when we focus on that, I mean, our bodies really do produce all these and release all these chemicals and everything that are healthy for us. Yeah. You know, so focusing on that, to bring our awareness and our attention to those things that are pleasurable. We talk about pleasure as medicine, you know, so that it's actually medicine to us. So saying yes to those things that are medicine to us. I did want to say one thing though about consent, because it's really about also like knowing why we're saying yes and no. Because you can say yes to things that may be traumatizing to you. And what I'm thinking about specifically is like GYN exams. You know, it's like at least the three of us can relate to that. Probably not you so much, but you know, and it's like we always give consent. You know, we say yes, but it's like a really unpleasant experience for a lot of us. You know, so then being able to, you know, acknowledge it's like, yes, I produced this experience for myself that definitely wasn't a 10, but and may have produced some level of, you know, for my yoni, some level of trauma. but then know how to process that through my body, but also making a choice. You know, it's like I'm choosing something that feels like this is going to be healthy for me, you know, having these exams. And so I've made a decision to say yes, as opposed to just, you know, like blindly just saying yes because this is what they said I need to do.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. I think when we have a deeper awareness gives us choice, right? And when we have choice, then we can have ownership of our lives. And then if you've decided to consent to something that you know isn't going to be comfortable or that may be difficult to experience, but we have given ourselves permission for that for whatever reason, for our greater health, then we can put systems of support into place for ourselves that may help us to either navigate during the experience or after or both, so that it really makes it so much better for us. And in some ways, taking personal responsibility and creating support for ourselves can take something that would have maybe been traumatic into something that could be healing, because we have taken ownership. We have choice. We've taken our personal control. Yeah, I love that you brought that. Thank you, Karen. Feels really good. Well, we are at the place, everyone, in our conversation where we're about to hit the resource roundtable, and it's super juicy, but I love everything around here to be consensual. So I'd like to let you all know, viewers, that we're going to go to a place now where everyone's going to let you know, if they desire to, what's coming up with them next, how you can work with them, where you can find them, any events that they're doing. If you would love to stay and watch with us and get more information, thank you for watching, and we're so happy you're here. And if you decide that you're not interested in learning more right now and want to step off, thank you so much for being here, and we were so happy you joined us. All right. Resources.
I like to hear from Camilla.
Yeah, me too. What you got going on?
Well. You can find me at, my company is called Flavors of Pleasure Academy. And so you can find me at flavorsofpleasure.com. Next month, I am hosting my first Luxe Boudoir experience for women. And it's going to be in Los Angeles. And so I just posted the information on social media. I have to get it on my website or what have you. But we're having someone come out to basically just love on women and to show them, you know, because again, like, we've all been through things, right? And I know with my first experience with boudoir, it was like such an amazing transformative experience. And I want that for other women. I want them to be able to see what we see in them, and the camera doesn't lie, right? So they'll get a chance to experience that. And also, if you're interested in private coaching or, you know, couples coaching as well, you know, again, you can contact me on my website. And sign up for my newsletter, because I have some things coming up at the end of the year, beginning of the year, with some retreats, domestic and international, but it's not listed yet. So just sign up for the newsletter, and you'll hear all about it when it's time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Boudoir. Yes. Boudoir. Yeah, I want to do that. That's not that far from me.
No, come on.
Is it the actual boudoir photography, or
I'm sorry,
like the boudoir photography? Is that what? Yeah.
Yes. Yum.
Yes.
So Camilla's information is in the description above, everybody. The website link as well as the name of her business. So go check her out. Nice. Thank you. Brion and Karen.
Well, if you ever do one of those events in Atlanta, we are boudoir photographers, so we're glad to do that. Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Oh, that's worth a trip to Atlanta too.
Yeah.
My
goodness. Didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, so I'll give her information after for that. But for our website, everything, you can find us on every social media channel and our website and Facebook at Explore Tantra. So our website, exploretantra.com. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Explore Tantra. Look for us. You'll find us there. We don't have any workshops or anything coming up yet, but if you go to our site and sign up, you'll be notified when we do. So
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be a year, and now we've moved into another year where it's like we haven't been doing much live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people doing things, and we, you know, we love that people are seeing each other again, you know, but we decided, let's just wait till next year, you know. So
you coach individuals and couples, though,
we
correct?
Do.
Yeah. So if people go to your website, they can get information about how to connect with you to see if that's the right fit, as well as with you, Camilla, right? To see if it's a right fit to coach with you.
And it doesn't have to be in person. I mean, I do a lot of my work virtually. So again, I know they haven't done workshops lately, but I'm sure they do a lot of stuff virtually as well. So
we do. Yeah. Everything we do is virtual.
Fantastic. You know, I love to build all of my businesses upon Together We Rise. And someone asked me recently, Christina, why are you having other coaches advertise themselves on your conversations? And I think because, like we talked about a little while ago, we all have an intake process. Who might work with me might not work with you. Who might not work with you might work with me. If we all support each other, we rise together. It's a greater act of service to make sure that people get the help that they need to connect deeper with themselves, so they can connect out further into all areas of life. That's how we rise up and make change, everyone. That's it right there, right? Yeah. So if you want to work with me, go and look in the description above. Like I said, I love helping individuals and couples clarify and speak their desires so that they can really get that depth of connection and intimacy that they're seeking. Speak Desire is my online course that's coming up again soon. So check out my website and get details there, as well as personal and couples counseling and one-on-ones. All right. What an absolute joy to be here with all of you. Thank you for this juicy conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much for creating this space and inviting us into it.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. Oh, for those of you watching as well, next week will be InPowered Consent and Difficult Reveals. So STIs, anything that feels difficult to reveal to your lover, but you need to, or to the people in your life that you need to reveal in order to really create those empowered consent conversations. We're going to be talking about that next week. As always, the invitation is empowerment. Have a gorgeous, pleasure-filled day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.